We'll start our session today with Kita Al-Fatihah. Okay, my name is Izawati Tekiman, and on behalf of Center for Professional Development, I would like to welcome all to this webinar. This publishing in give us methods in index journals, especially in WOS and Scopus, specifically. So writing index journal would be an excellent platform for us because it helps us to be recognized in our field. Concerning this, CPD is organizing this webinar on research skill to help academics see the potential to publish in journals. Our speaker for today webinar on publishing in index journals in sciences is Nur Ashikinuddin from Kuliah of Engineering. She is currently a Deputy Director, Research Unit. Have lots of things to share with us in to me first. And I would like to hand over this screen to Prof.
The voice not coming. Maybe internet disconnected.
Yes, I thought it was just me. Everybody else has the same problem, right?
Yeah, maybe her internet was not working well.
Okay. I'm also in the kuliah, so don't know. Hopefully it's not the IIUM.
Maybe I can help to open the session.
Okay.
All right.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. Mira.
Waalaikumsalam, Prof. Anis. So I think the internet connection in some areas of the universities is a bit unstable this morning. I experienced the same, but hopefully it's clear now. But let me help Dr. Iza to open the session. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Iza, for organizing the session. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And thank you very much to the team from CPD who have organized this session way early, not only yesterday, but it's a weeks and maybe months that they have liaised with Prof. Anis on this session. So thank you very much, Dr. Iza and Sister Hannah. And I would also like to thank Prof. Anis for taking times and then preparing for all the materials that you're going to share with us today. So the session today is basically to assist all colleagues who have been, maybe have been in IIUM for quite some time, but trying to get some ideas on how to publish in index journals, and also to assist those who have just joined IIUM on trying to figure out what would be best or how the process of publishing into the index journals. So, Alhamdulillah, with us, we have a very prominent professor. Her track in publications is I don't think I can ever compete with her quality of work, but inshallah we will get the inspiration from her today, and inshallah we will try to improve on whatever we have done in the past, and inshallah may this be a barakah to all of us, inshallah. So to add the barakah to the session, I'm not sure whether we have started with Fatiha.
Not yet, I think. Not
okay, yet. All right. So to add, thank you very much, Prof. So to add the barakah to our session, let's start with Al-Fatiha.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Okay, so thank you so much again to everyone and to all professors, doctors, brothers and sisters who joined the session today. May this session be fruitful from start to the end, inshallah. Thank you again to the speakers, and the session is yours. Thank you, Prof. Anis.
Okay, Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you so much, Prof. Mira, for the introduction. Actually, Prof. Mira is just being humble. Her, I think her publication is even better than mine, track record of publication. So I'm just sharing today on how to publish in index journals and for Web of Science and Scopus, and this is actually the main target is for the science, those people from the kuliah of the science-based kuliahs. Okay, so so the topics to be covered today is the basic considerations for publishing in high impact journals, why and for whom. And then we can understand what are the different types of journal indexing services, ISI, Scopus, etc., and how to evaluate the journals on which one you should send your work to. And then the next part would be how high impact journals work. And then the next section is going to be important considerations in publishing high impact journals. And we are going to give you some reasons for rejection, why the journal editors reject the work, and some strategies to improve your chances of publishing in high impact journals. Okay. So why do we need to publish? Usually publishing is an important facet of teaching and research. So as we know, we are in the higher education business, and our work is mainly teaching, research, and applying the knowledge that is generated. So a lot of this happens in the university, and how do we document our work, and we want other people to benefit from our work. This is usually the main reason why we publish, so that we can share our work to the public, and so that other people can examine our work and to duplicate our work and to also verify our work. So this is the main reason for publishing. So your documentation and the sharing of knowledge, so that the knowledge can be built and can be extended further. Okay, so there are different categories of publications. I think most of you are familiar. We have the book chapter, the conference, the non-index journal, and the index journal. So usually the easiest in terms of to write and to publish is from below is the book chapter. Book chapters are usually more lengthy than journals. However, they don't necessarily need to be new knowledge. In that case, that is why the book chapter is easier to write, because you can use existing knowledge and to compile them into a book chapter. Okay, for conferences, journals, usually it's you want to share any new findings that you have made in your research. So conference papers are typically 4 to 5 pages, and then journals are longer, 8, sometimes 10 or 12 pages. So there are two different categories of non-index journals and index journals. So we are going to explain what is index journal soon. And the other criteria is non-index journals are the ones that are not put into a specific database. Okay, so why do we want to publish in high impact journals? So for example, if you are a PhD student, usually, or a master student, this is a requirement for graduation. And for faculty members, usually writing publications is a requirement for promotion. Okay, but this actually is the benefit for the person who is writing it. But actually, the main reason of publishing should be to disseminate the knowledge, to share the knowledge. And when you have shared your knowledge with other people, you will be recognized as an expert in this field or this subfield of research. Okay, so other reasons of publication, maybe you want the university, they also rank. The ministry usually ranks the university based on the number of publications that the faculty produces. Okay, So there is something here which we can distinguish for each researcher. So the researcher can have a researcher ID or a Scopus ID. So over here, ORCID ID is a central registry or a database which stores each the name of each researcher, their publications. Okay, so they have a ORC ID, a Scopus ID, and a research ID. So we will go through this, and this is to help to collect the data on each researcher on what they publish. Okay, so now we are going to go on indexing journal services. What are the different indexing types? Okay, so we have at the bottom of the rank is the Google Scholar. The Google Scholar is a very wide database. It is an automated database. A lot of the researchers like this because we do not need to do anything. We just register our name, and all publications that have our name will be automatically collected and stored in the Google Scholar database. And then you have another one called DOJ, Directory of Open Access Journals. And then you have another one which is collected by the company called Elsevier, and they index it in under Scopus. And the next one is Web of Science. So as you can see, the coverage is lower as you go up. So Web of Science, they only collect a certain number of journals. Scopus has a wider range of journals. DOJ has even wider, and the widest of all is the Google Scholar. So the Web of Science, they categorize the papers that are categorized under Web of Science usually are of high quality and are usually checked and revised by researchers. So there are reviewers who review the Web of Science journals. Okay. So what is Web of Science? Web of Science or Clarivate Analytics. Okay, so Web of Science comes from ISI or the Institute of Scientific Information. Okay, it was founded by Dr. Eugene Garfield in 1960s. ISI, when it started, it covers thousands of academic journals which are available through their ISI's Web of Knowledge database service. And after that, ISI then sold the database to Clarivate Analytics. And then finally, Clarivate Analytics finally put it under Web of Science. Okay, so it is, they have many collections. The number of records is 79 million in the core collection and 171 million in the entire platform. So they rank these journals in the Web of Science by their impact factor, and this is collected in the Journal Citation Report. Okay, so as you can see over here, the Web of Science core collection is very large. It covers a lot of subjects. So for example, biological abstracts, they have different types of index to rank these kind of journals. So they usually rank it based on the citation, and they have different citations for different types of journals. For example, they have Science Citation Index, SCI, or Science Citation Index Expanded, SCIE. So these are for the sciences. For the social sciences, they have a different citation index, SSCI. For arts and humanities, they have AHCI. For the emerging sources or the emerging journals, they have ESCI. For books, they have Book Citation Index. And for conference, they have a separate index. So all these are the collection of citations. So every time a person cites your paper, they have a record of this, and they collect it under this citation index. Okay, so inside the core collection are all these citation indexes, and they have all other indexes surrounding the core collection. Okay, so how do you find a Web of Science journal? So there is a master list, and the link is what I have written here from Clarivate. So you can go to this link and you can check any journal. If you're worried whether this journal is indexed in ISI or Web of Science, you can go to this website and check. Okay, so then it will be listed what kind of SCI or indexing is it listed under, SCI, SSCI, or ESCI. Okay, so this is the example of this website. Okay, so you go here and then you can search, you can type in the name of the journal and click search journals, and it will tell you whether the journal is listed in the Web of Science. So for here, I have put in an example. It is called, the journal is named is Biosensors and Bioelectronics. So here this journal is indexed in Web of Science. You can see here the publisher is Elsevier, and which core collection it is under, the Science Citation Index Expanded, and also indexed in all these other indexes. Okay, so this is, you can have an take a look at the journal. So this is the journal. The screenshot on the right is the screenshot of the journal at the journal's webpage, right? And you can see here on the left is what the information, which index it is listed in. There are two journals which are related to biosensors. The first one is Biosensors and Bioelectronics, and you have Biosensors by Basel. Okay, so you can see here, from here you can see which journal it is, whether it's related to the article that you want to write about. So you can see the scope. So here all the papers that you want. If you want to write about topic about biosensors, you can see here. If you're writing about analytical devices, then you can target this journal. So it has other journal metrics. For example, the Schemago journal rank. They have a journal rank. They have the impact factor. The impact factor is 7.4, and the 5-year impact factor is slightly low. This impact factor, the first one is for the current year. Okay. So there is another report which is also published by the Web of Science, and this is called the Journal Citation Report. The Journal Citation Report lists the impact factor for each journal that it tracks. Okay, so what is impact factor? Impact factor is a measure of the frequency which the average article in the journal is cited in a particular year. So if the impact factor is, just now we saw was 7, so this is the average citation. That means at least there are, for a journal in that, for a particular manuscript in that journal, there's an average of 7 citations for the paper. Of course, not necessarily your journal, if it's published, you will have 7 citations. Maybe there are manuscripts in that journal which are cited more, maybe hundreds, and there are some articles in that journal which are cited less. But on the average, the citation is about 7. Okay, so the impact factor is published every June for the previous year. Okay. So there is 2 types of journal citation report. One is for the JCR Web Science edition, and another one is for the Social Science edition. So for the Science edition, there are about 5,700 journals in the area of science and tech. And for social sciences, there are about 1,700 journals in the social sciences. Okay, so so not all the journals in the ISI or Web of Science master list not necessarily will be in JCR. They will usually select the ones that have high citations to be included in the JCR. Okay, so other than this, the Web of Science also publishes a list of highly cited researchers, and also this having very high citations is also one of the factors which is included in the ranking of the universities. Okay, so for example, in IIUM, there is one of the researcher, I think Prof. Majuki, he's also among the highly cited researchers in Malaysia. So I think in the Web of Science list, he's also one of the persons listed in the highly cited researchers. Okay, so you can check over here. For example, we're going back to the JCR impact factor. The JCR impact factor here in 2019, they haven't come out with the report if it's before June, and they will come out for the report before that to 2018. So you have here the JCR impact factor is 9.518 for this particular journal, Biosensors and Bioelectronics. Okay, so if you are targeting a journal, you can target several journals. Not necessarily, if you think that, for example, this biosensors and bioelectronics is difficult to get into, the impact factor is too high, you're not so confident on your work, you can also target other similar journals. So what you can do is when you click on it, you can also click on find similar journals in the area that you choose. For example, here, if your work is in area of biotechnology, applied microbiology, biophysics, etc., you can click this to find other similar journals to target to. And then you can check the JCR impact factor and see whether your work can be suited in this range. Okay, so we have talked about Web of Science. Now we talk about Scopus. So if Web of Science is under Clarivate, so Elsevier, a very big publisher, it has its own database. So they are like competitors, and they established their own citation database in 2004. So Scopus has a wider range of journals. So not all the journals that are covered in WOS are listed in WOS. So Scopus decided to cover more journals, and they put in their own database, and it measures different things. And because all these names are proprietary, they have like a copyright on it. So they, Scopus and Web of Science will use different names, even though they are measuring about the same thing. So if just now you have impact factor, this one, it measures, they use a different naming. So they measure H index of the researcher, the site score, the journal rank, and the SNIP, or the source normalized impact per paper. This is like the impact factor. But they changed their name because they are due not to infringe on the right of the Web of Science. So this Scopus also includes patents in its database. And as you can see here, the number of records is much, much higher. It is 78 million. So this is Scopus indexing service. You can also go to Scopus. So here is the link, www.scopus.com/sources. So you can type the title of the journal that you are interested in. So for example, over here, this is the home page. You can see here, and there are many journals. So the journals here listed over here, they have different site score. So as you can see, like Nature, for example, has very high site score, hundreds of site score. And you have others, other journals which have slightly lower site score. So you can have, if you're, they also have areas. So they have highest percentile. So for example, this journal, CA Cancer Journal for Clinicians, this journal is ranked number 1 out of 331 journals in oncology. And then they collected the number of citations for this particular journal. There are 47,000 citations between 2016 to 2019. And how many documents are there in this journal in these years between 2016 to 2019, and how many percent are cited. So this is a highly cited journal. So the percentage of citations are almost about 94% of their journals are cited. Okay, So this is an example of the journal in Scopus. So for example, if you have this Nature Review materials and you click on it, you can find out further about this particular journal. So Nature Reviews materials, you can see what are the subject areas. The subject areas are material science, material chemistry, material science, electronics, material science surfaces, coatings and films, biomaterials. So it has the site score 123, the SJR is 36, and this is the impact factor 15.261. Okay, so over here you can also see which percentile the Nature Reviews journal is in. And as you can see here, you can see the site score trend. So this journal is gaining more and more attention for the researchers. As you can see, from 2017, the site score was lower, and in 2019, the site score became higher. So there's more and more interest in this particular journal. Okay, so now we go into the next part, which is the DOAJ, Directory of Open Access Journals. So this directory is only for open access journals. So if you have Elsevier and Web of Science, some of the journals, they are not open access. So that means they are not free for access. In comparison, this is the directory for open access journals. So for IIUM, we have a lot of journals that are published by IIUM, and a lot of them are open access. So they are listed in this directory, or the Directory of Open Access Journal, DOAJ. Okay, so you can go to this directory and also search for open access journals. Okay, so there is a controversial topic on open access and predatory publishing. So a lot of people are worried that the papers that are open access are also predatory. So this is just a few slides on how to evaluate whether the open access journal is predatory or not, and how you can evaluate them. So a lot of researchers like open access because it is free. Researchers like it because they can access the journals easily, but the authors have some problems because when they want to publish, they have to pay a lot of fees. So open access, you can get access immediately. They are online, and you can cite easily these papers. Okay, so there are a lot of, I think there is a lot of movement on the open access publication. So we are in the business of disseminating knowledge. So if the knowledge is free and widely used, so because some of the publishers, they charge a very high fee for the researchers to access. For example, Elsevier, if you want the subscription base, or IEEE, for example, we have to pay a lot of fees in order to access the manuscripts. However, so these manuscripts are only for the elite, those people who can pay for it. So what about the rest of us who cannot pay for it? We cannot access these important journals, which are expensive. So there are also a lot of talk in the ministry that the papers that are funded by grants should be open access, so that a lot of people can benefit from your work, since if it's free, so a lot more exposure. Your work can be viewed by most of the public. The researchers in developing countries like us, a lot of us can see your work, and usually research is funded by taxpayers, and the taxpayers can get their value for the investment that they have done on us. This is also complying with grant rules the public can access, and the wider access, the wider coverage of your work, you can perhaps even influence the policy. And usually, if it's open access, you can have higher citation rates. Okay, and other people can apply your findings. Okay, these are the benefits of the open access. You can retain, make your own copies, reuse, revise, remix, redistribute of all these open access papers. Okay, so it is usually very easy to share all the open access papers. So there are high impact open access journals. So for example, the journal just now that was highly cited, the CA, Cancer Journal for Clinicians, PeerJ, PLOS ONE, they also have open access options. There are certain countries in the Europe and also in the Nordic countries, the universities, some of the universities even make it a policy that the researchers must publish only in open access journals so that the knowledge is accessible to everyone. So the university will give fees or will pay for the publication. Okay, so whether the journal is predatory or not, it depends on whether the peer review process is done well. So usually when you want to write a journal, you do your research and then you choose a target journal where you want to send it to. You read the instruction for authors and then you polish your journal and then you submit. Okay, so when you submit, it can either be accepted or rejected. So that means there are people or knowledgeable people who are in the same field who will evaluate your work and will review your work and see whether it should be accepted or not. Okay, so if it is accepted with correction, so you have to revise and then you can send it for copy editing and then you can publish. So if this process is not done properly, for example, the journals that are predatory, they do not review the paper properly. So they just automatically accept. So for example, there was in the famous Beals article, there was an article that was just like garbage. They send and the journal accept. So these type of journals are usually predatory. Okay, so there are many methods of the open access, green road or golden road. So you have the subscription-based access, or you have free or completely open access. So if, for example, if you do the one on the right, the gold road, usually this will have article processing charge. So here you submit your paper to the publisher, it will be peer reviewed, you have the final version, and then you pay the article processing fees and it will be immediately published. If you go through the green road here, usually you don't pay for publication fees. So you will submit the paper to the publisher, it will be peer reviewed, and it can only be published to people who have subscription. So this is the version. So there can be also there can be green journals which also do open access. So for example, these kind of journals, for example, Elsevier, they all have also implemented open access. So they follow the green road here, over here, but after that they charge a article processing charge if you want it to be open access. So there are two methods. Okay, so predatory publishers. So these predatory publishers are those who do not. Okay, so let's see. So the predatory publishers are publishers who profit on the gold open access author pay model. So they just make profit out of the authors. They do not review properly. They do not have people who review it properly, and they just publish. So this is an easy method of publishing, but when you publish in this journal, it may harm your academic credibility. Okay, so this you can see they have, this is from the article, the Nature article. You can see here, over here, they have a breakdown of number of papers published in predatory journals by the different countries. As you can see here, it's usually some people in the middle income, those who can afford, that might publish in predatory journals. Okay, so how to avoid publishing in predatory journals. So if you have usually people emailing you, asking them to publish in our journal. So usually those who are very aggressive in soliciting papers, these are signs of being predatory. Okay, so you have to check the journal website. It should have appropriate scope and clear scope. It should have an editorial board with recognized experts and contact information. It has a description of the peer review process, and it has transparent information about the article processing charges. Okay. So these are the tips and tricks on how to avoid predatory journals. Okay. So here is the summary on the, so you have to think about it and then check and then only submit. Okay, so so here are some journals that, and as an example here, there are different journal on biological sciences. So here we can look over here and see how to know if the journals are predatory or not. Okay, so let's go through here. So here you can see here, if you take an example, the Journal of Biological Sciences, it is a peer-reviewed journal. It explains everything, and it is clear about the article processing charges. You can see it is also listed in Scopus. It has the SGR. It's in the quartile Q4. So this is like a valid journal. Okay, and you can see the examples of the journals in this paper, in this journal. Okay, so they have they are also, the journal is also a member of the Committee on Publication Ethics. So this is a good journal. Okay. So there are also other, you can go to another website. They are the second one on the list just now. This is the SCI alert. They have the A to Z journals, A to Z list of their journals under the Sky alert. Okay, as you can see here, this journal is starting to look fishy because they have slightly more than 10 journals. They don't give very informative contact. Where to contact, who to contact. They are very, very sort of secretive on who their editors are. There's no information on this. Okay, so these are about flaky academic journals. Okay, so you can search, or also you can do a Google search with the journal title and use the keyword spam or predatory. Okay, so you can see whether this journal is. So here it says that this science alert journals was on the BIOS list. Okay. All right. So enough about predatory journals. Now we go about, we want to target to publish in Web of Science journals. So how do these journals work? So the reason why Web of Science journal is like respected is because it has a very strict refereeing process. There are 2 to 4 referees for each journal, each manuscript submitted, and the referees are from the people or the experts in the field. The acceptance rate is low, less than 50%. Some have even less than 20%. The journals or the articles in this journal is highly cited, and usually the highest level of Web of Science journal have published the most original or important contribution in this field. So why are we usually targeting this Web of Science journal? So once you have published in a Web of Science journal, you sort of have made like a mark so that the quality of your work is considered like a significant contribution to this subfield. Okay, so how do you select a particular Web of Science journal? You can choose your field of knowledge, and then you decide on which journals to publish. So the journals are determined by the impact factor and their quartile, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Okay, and then you can select what kind of journal to write, whether to write a review article, original research article, or a letter. Okay, so a review article is not necessarily a new finding. You are doing like a literature review and you are critically analyzing existing work. Okay, an original research article is an article that you are findings that you have of your recent research and you want to share this knowledge. Letters are usually shorter forms of research articles, so usually 4 pages or less. Okay, another important thing about selecting a journal is the turnaround time. Some journals take a long time, maybe 3 or 4 months to review for the review process. Okay, so these journals, when you send it to them, you need to like take into account that they will not give you a response until for maybe a few months. You also have to check the number of publications per year. So if the journal has, for example, only publishing 2 or 3 times a year, so you can expect that the turnaround time will be slightly slower. And then how much are the fees, if it has online edition, but nowadays mostly journals have online edition. And then the length of the structure of the manuscript. So whether you want to write a review papers are usually much longer than research articles. Okay, so this is the review process. So usually you have the first screening, you submit, you have the first screening from the chief editor. So the chief editor agrees that this journal is within the scope, so it will pass to at least 2 reviewers, send it for peer review. Okay, so then if the 2 reviewers are agree and they accept the paper, so then it will the chief editor will send the author to revise if there are any corrections. If there are reviewers who don't agree, for example, if both of them don't agree, then the editor can reject the paper. If one of them agree and one of them don't agree, sometimes the chief editor will solicit another review from another reviewer. Okay, so finally, if the journal has been edited and passed through, then it will be sent for under the editorial board meeting to assign the issue, like which issue will this journal be published in, and then the journal will be published. Okay, so what are the most important considerations when publishing in Web of Science journal? Okay, so usually there are questions. Is my research worth publishing? Is my research describing an original and significant contribution to the field? How can I prepare my research paper in the shortest possible of time? Okay, how does the journal acceptance procedure work? How many steps are needed? So this one, you've already seen the flowchart in the previous slide. Okay, and how to find a proper ISI journal. We have discussed this earlier. And then the last one is how to increase the citation of my papers. Okay, so the types of articles that are published in Web of Science journal, usually the first type is that the article must describe an original and significant contribution. So how do you know this? This is by doing the literature review. Usually you need to compare your work. You have a comparison of your work compared to the existing work, and you have to highlight the novelty of your work. So highlighting the novelty is the most important part of your work. So articles that effectively present the original and significant contribution, if you can effectively demonstrate to the reviewer that your work is significant and original, this is when they accept your paper. Okay, so what is the difference between a contribution and a significant contribution? So a contribution is just any added work to the literature, the existing literature. A significant contribution means that you must highlight what is the importance of your work and why is it important, how is it better than existing work. So you can use these kind of sentences. So maybe the first two, maybe not the last one. Most scholars you can have an intro. So most in this field work on a certain topic, and your research, you have to highlight your research. How is it significant compared to the others? Okay, so this part, how to write the high impact journal. So usually the journal is the manuscript that you're writing is basically trying to tell a story. So before you even start to write, or before you even start to do the experiment, this is one thing that I've learned throughout the years. It is easier to publish in a high impact journal if from the beginning, before you even start anything, you already have in mind that you want to submit to a high impact journal. So you have to see the breadth and the type of work that is already published in this type of journals. So you have to design this story. Okay, what is your work about? Have other people done this before? So you check the literature, and then you design the experiment. So, okay, I want to create this novel device, which other people have not yet done. And this will be the benefit of having this device or this experiment. So in order to do this, you need to think a lot. And usually it is easier when you have help from other people. So this is where you can collaborate with other researchers. So most of my papers that I've managed to go through the high impact journal are usually via collaboration. It's very rare that I can write alone and manage to penetrate the high impact journals. So when you have other people reviewing your work meaning experiment, when designing the story and discussing and writing. So this is when the article is quality gets better and better. Okay, of course, the manuscript has to be supported by good graphics and good English. And finally, you can submit the manuscript. Okay, so what the editors and reviewers look for in a research paper. So originality, that's the most important thing. Relevance to the topic and relevance to the journal. So you remember when we looked at the journal, they have mentioned about their aims and scope. So your article must fit into their scope of work. Okay, research methodology, the methods must be explained clearly and another person should be able to repeat the experiment. Okay, so clarity, structure, and quality of writing. So you have to proofread the writing or the student's writing many times. So there must be a sound, logical progression of argument. So this is your story. The story must make sense. It has to be supported by all the evidences or results. Okay, theoretical and practical implication. So why is it important, your work? Okay, so experiment results should be compared with other works. And you have recent and relevant references. And of course, adherence to the scope and the objectives of the journal. Okay, so certain important points before sending the paper. Many papers are rejected simply because they do not fulfill the journal requirements. They do not even go to the review process. So this is my worst nightmare. You just spend so much time in writing the journal, and then the editor just takes one look at it and it automatically decides to reject. So we want to avoid this as much as possible. So in order to avoid this, you need to identify which journal, like maybe if your work, you need to compare the work in that particular journal and see whether your work is comparable or not. So for example, just now we saw Nature, right? So if you think your work is not Nature level, so maybe don't target that one if you don't you can see that your work is not comparable to the others. But you can maybe the next level before the nature or something like this. Okay, so follow the author guidelines, the scope, the type of paper, the word length, reference, etc. Formatting must be good. Okay, and you can also, some journals, they have sub-editors or subject area editors. So for example, big journals have many sub-editors. So they have a chief editor and they have many different subject area editors. So you can also submit to the subject area editors. Submitting to the subject area editor means that when you submit, you can select a specific editor if you think your work is within that subject area. Okay. And the abstract is the most important part. So you need to work a lot on the abstract. Make sure it's perfect, it fits the word length, all the important key points are already highlighted in the abstract. Okay. Okay, this one I think we can skip because usually we submit through a system, and you have to read articles in the publication in that journal. So for example, if you're targeting Nature journal, you need to read articles in that journal and see whether your paper is similar to that, or how do you make your paper similar to that kind of standard. Okay, so there is also another tool in Elsevier. So you have a journal finder. So you can also use this to find the perfect journal for your article. So for example, you want to write in the area of cloud computing, and then you can put this the title here, and you can click on the fields of research and click find journal, and then it will list the journals that are in this area. So it will tell you what kind of journals which are related, what is the turnaround time, for example, 10 weeks or 22 weeks. Is it open access or not? Is there any fees, open access fees? Okay. Okay, now we go into the reasons for rejection from Web of Science. So some of the general problems are that the issue is not important, or the work, you have not managed to highlight the importance of your work clearly. Okay, not original. Of course, before you send, you should maybe perhaps also check with Turnitin, and also read the literature to see whether other people have also done similar work. If yes, then you have to cite. Okay, not appropriate for the journal, meaning that you didn't choose an appropriate journal which had the same scope that you're writing about. Okay, old data or which are not irrelevant nowadays. Okay, practical difficulties. So if your results are doubtful, so this is when you have collaborator you can discuss first before submitting. Okay, and others are conflict of interest and ethical issues. Okay, so these are and other problems, possible problems. So you have unclear hypothesis. You didn't write the hypothesis clearly. Poor or weak design. Usually this is the design of experiments. So this design of experiment is very important. Did you check all the parameters that you need to study regarding the work? Do you have enough samples? If you only have 1 or 2 samples, can you make an assumption for the general population? Okay, are your calculations or statistics correctly done? Okay, so this one usually you need to discuss with other people to double check your work. Okay, conclusion, you cannot overclaim. You must state whatever you the findings. So the reviewers also do not like over promising or over claims. Okay, and of course references have to be recent and not outdated. Okay, other things, of course, the English has to be, the grammar has to be correct, the organization should be well. So you are telling a story, the story should flow properly. So all the results are supported by figures. but you shouldn't have too many figures. Figures should be clear and well done, very clear and nicely drawn. Okay, and okay, this is the references. So these are the illustration and figures. So actually these figures can make or break your paper. So some of my papers are rejected simply because I do not have high-powered microscope taking very good pictures of whatever my experiments. So this is where you need to like spend a lot more time preparing the figures. Figures should be clear, labeled, drawn well. You can even get professional people to draw your schemes. These are called schemes. So some articles which are published, sometimes they even have professional people who are drawing. You can see that these figures are very nicely done. They are almost like 3D. So high quality figures usually improve the acceptance rate, as it shows that the researcher is very serious about the work and very meticulous, like very particular. So all the figures are labeled nicely and it is clear. Okay, and all the microscope image are well labeled and put all the scale, etc. Okay, so some of strategies to improve the chances of publishing in Web of Science journals. So, okay, so you have to understand the chemistry of scholarly research. This is your literature review. You have to look into all the relevant work and cite and also make a comparison and analysis. Okay, so this is for those in PhD. You can start writing during initial stages. Okay, so another important strategy is, of course, to build network and collaboration. If you collaborate with professors who have long track record of publishing in high impact journals, so he or she will then help you to build your journal, so to build your manuscript. So a lot of things I have learned mainly from other colleagues or other professors. They have helped me improve the quality of my work. So this, you have also must be able to take criticism well. So if the person says, sometimes what they say is not very easy to take, because they might say they just repeat the experiment because your results are not good, retake the picture, redraw. So you have to understand, if you want to improve the quality of work, these are the things that you must be prepared to do. Rewrite the whole story, etc. So these are all the strategies to improve your work. Okay, so these are the breakdown. You have the introduction, usually methods, results, and discussion. Of course, the abstract and title. So the abstract is the most important part, and usually I leave it for the last to write so that it can be revised to have the best write-up. Of course, you have something which I forgot to put here is the keyword. So if your paper, for example, has keyword biosensor, so this word biosensor must appear many times in your article because that is a keyword. So whatever novelty that you are trying to highlight, that should also be in the keyword, and that should also be present a lot of times in your work. So that is another technique. Okay, so of course the journal, there will be, once you have submitted, it can be accepted without revision. I've never gotten this in my life. I usually either have major revision, minor revision, or rejected. So this is like almost impossible. But I'm sure if you work very well, you can have accepted without revisions. You can also have accepted with minor revisions. Usually this has a shorter time frame to correct, maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks. Major revisions, sometimes they can give you 1 or 2 months, maybe if you have to repeat the experiment. Okay, you also have rejected but encouraged to resubmit with revision. This is usually if it's out of scope but your paper is good quality. So they might ask you to resubmit either to that journal or to another journal. Okay, rejection rejected with no revision, that means, of course, this is like really bad and we want to avoid this. Okay, so if you have revision, it is important to carefully respond to the reviewer comment. So especially if you get accepted with major revision. So this means that there is one reviewer who is supporting your paper, one reviewer who is not so much supporting. But you want to make sure this reviewer is now in your favor. So you want to lobby for this reviewer to accept your paper. So you have to revise your article nicely, politely, in order to win over this reviewer. Usually you do not argue with the reviewer. Usually the reviewers, we have good faith that the reviewers are experts in the field. And when he or she comments, usually he or she knows more about that topic. So you are encouraged to add or explain or add material and revise accordingly. And usually you will start with, thank you for the comment. We have revised this part to be like this, as you mentioned, or added some results to support our findings. Okay, so it is important to be polite to the reviewer, not to make him or her upset and then decide to reject the paper after all. So that will just throw all your hard work into the dustbin. So try to win over the reviewers. So this is also an important aspect of getting it accepted. Okay, so write very nicely, have a nice comment, and make their life easier by showing what have you revised. Okay, so to conclude my talk, select the most appropriate journals. Good review journals have higher citations. Okay, this is why we, if you cannot have new work immediately, you can also start with writing good review journals. Okay, review journals also have higher citations. Okay, and have high quality illustrations or figures to improve the acceptance rate of your manuscript. If necessary, you can get proofreading services. You can pay for this for proofreaders, or you can ask your colleagues to proofread your work, or collaborate with a professor and ask him or her to help proofread. Okay, so you aim to deliver the knowledge that you have worked on for several years in the best possible way and in shorter sentences and not long-winded sentences. Okay, so I wish everyone good luck. Any questions?
Any question from the audience?
I have a question.
Yes, Dr. Shakur.
And I must start by admitting that I wasn't too rigorous perhaps in checking out the journal as you've explained. It was the first time I tried to publish in a high impact journal, and I submitted something that I thought was extremely original and hadn't been done before. And that was actually the problem. They said there's not enough research about this, so what do you do then? I gave up.
Oh, okay. So I didn't quite get you. You didn't have a thorough literature review, for example. Is that it? And then what was their comment?
I didn't check out the journal and the articles that rigorously. I was just excited about my article, and I felt it was relevant to the topic. I mean, the area of the journal. I submitted it, and they just outright rejected it, saying there's nothing. It's just too new.
Oh, okay.
There's no research on this.
There's no research on that.
Or there's little research on it. That's what they said. And that's why I thought it was good.
Oh, okay. But maybe they meant that there's not much interest in that field of area. Maybe you can highlight why is it important for them to be interested in your work.
That's a good idea. So don't take no for an answer.
Okay.
Maybe I'll retry.
Yeah, don't give up. Yeah, you have to remember not to give up. I think, yeah.
But this was going back a lot. This was going back at the beginning of my career, and I was so demoralized that I thought, okay, I'll just go for low impact, low, easy ones, and never mind that.
Writing journals is also like writing grant proposals. So you just, you be upset for 1 or 2 days and then you get over it and retry it. I mean, if not, this is our life, right? We cannot we cannot do anything, right? We just, continue.
Okay, thanks.
I think
Okay, any more questions from the audience?
Yeah, Prof, if I can comment on that, on
Yes.
Dr. Shakur experience just now. Dr.
Yes,
Shakur, I would
probably.
recommend you to read one book. There's one book called Reject Me, I Love It. You'll be that will become a hashtag for today. Reject Me, I Love It. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramira.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Hi, Assalamualaikum, Prof. Ronnie
Waalaikumsalam.
from COS.
Yeah, Dr.
Marine Science
Dr. Fitri.
Department from COS. So I have been, I think this is my 6th year in UIA. So,
Okay.
Since 2016. So I faced many rejections from the high impact journals. That is number one. But my question is how we want to get the open access journals that have high impact, because I just checked with DOAJ. There's a lot of good journals there, but sometimes when I submitted my articles, they straightforwardly rejected the article after reading the titles, although it's the same in the same field or niche. So I have my own opinion about publications that we have to do it by our own, but for it later. But please, Prof, how we want to? I mean, at least our articles can be accepted for peer review. That's
Maybe you can email the editor and ask, like, why is it? If you say that it's already in the scope, why do they like outright reject? So the one way is to be sort of, you can ask the so some editors are kind enough. Usually we can even ask, nowadays we don't get to go to conferences, but this is what I do normally. If you can, these editors are sometimes they are also professors who go to conferences. So sometimes I do that. That's how I learn how they accept. Like you study under them. I did my sabbatical under one famous editor, that Biosensors actually, that editor. So he sort of like guided, indirectly. Like you see how they work, and then you see how what kind of journals they produce, and then the thought process. So that is way, But easier way now, you can just email. They also have sub editors, so maybe if the chief editor is busy, you can target the other editors. Usually they will help, some of them will help.
Okay.
Then I find out like actually the way I wrote or the story or it's not correct, or my experiment, I didn't think about all these experiments beforehand, so I just did like a half, like not complete lah. Maybe I needed 10, I only did 5. It's this is the problem in sciences. So if you already did 5 and you spend like 2 years doing 5 and you want to publish and suddenly they don't accept, right? So you become you become very upset. But in the first year, if you knew you needed 10, then you could have planned for 10, right?
Okay.
So that is.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Second, Prof, can I ask one question?
Sure.
I realized, I wrote a trial in the past, a clinical trial.
Okay.
Then I found it very difficult because I've submitted my trial to a lot of journals, and subsequently until only the 5th journal accepted, and it's a non-high impact lah. Just happened that I've noticed a few other similar trials to mine who actually managed to be published in BMJ in high impact journal. And this trial, I realized they actually publish their protocol. You know, like clinical trials.
Yeah. You have the protocol, but you didn't
I
disclose your
registered my
protocol.
protocols, but I registered my protocols because it's part of the requirement. But I didn't actually publish a protocol. You know, they actually write a protocol and submit to a journal and get published.
Yes, I think protocols are very important because sometimes you spend a lot of time trying to perfect the protocol, right?
Yes.
If you're culturing cells or something.
But because your protocol is actually, I mean, for example, like for clinical trial or for systematic reviews and meta-analysis, we have to register the protocol. So the protocol is registered and it's open access, but it's not published like a manuscript. You know, but
open access meaning it is published elsewhere.
It is published in the registry. For example, if you go to like Prospero, you can access to all the systematic review protocols of systematic reviews. And
can you cite that?
Yes, you can cite protocols.
In your manuscript, did you cite that or not?
We have to mention that because when we register, when we register the protocol, we get the registration number. So when we submit a trial or meta-analysis, we have to we have to not jot down the they will request, the journal will request the registration number. But I noticed a lot of like trial who I think the quality is about the same as mine. Maybe I short sendiri, I tak tahu lah. Tapi it's possible like just as good as mine, the sample size is about the same. But yet they've got they publish in a very good journal. One of the reasons I noticed because they actually publish their protocol. They actually publish in a journal, but it's a protocol.
Maybe you can summarize your protocol and also cite. And I think there might be other things as well that it is not obvious maybe in the article that are accepted. Is it possible for you to collaborate with any the others like published authors?
Yes, that's probably because my network is quite limited. I think that's another issue. I think the networking is also another issue because because
don't be afraid that other people are going to steal your work, or I mean, be afraid to network. That is the best way actually to learn.
I think because I think networking require like a middleman. You know, like because I'm
middleman. Why?
No, I'm still very new. I just graduated in December 2020. So it's still I'm still very new. And actually because my lecturer they don't actually produce. They don't actually publish in high impact as well. So, you know, when your circle is not.
So you have many options. You can do postdoc under a professor who is high impact. You can choose. Yeah. You can do. IUM has research leave. You can work with them 1 or 2 months. You have many options. You need to widen your network because how are you going to learn? You cannot learn in one day. You cannot learn by reading, actually. You need to be with them and learn how they work. And then all these stories will come out, like how they write. It actually, there's a lot of thinking which is not obvious in the journal.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you, Prof.
Welcome. Is there any question in the chat box? I didn't open it. Okay.
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam.
I have one question.
Yes, Dr. Fakhrazi.
Okay. If I could ask, what is the normal period of waiting for paper to get reviewed by the reviewer? Because I have this is my experience. I submit one paper for a journal and it takes too long for assigning the reviewer. Then I withdraw the paper. Then I try to find another one. Then again, another 2 months. This is the third time, and it's cost 2 months to assign editor. Right now, the status is assigned editor. So, I don't know what is this threshold time that I should wait? And yes, then
1 to 2 months actually is normal. 1 to 2 months is normal actually. It's quite if they reply to you within 1 month is considered fast. But long is like 6 months like this. But before that, you should look into the website and see the article published. Usually they have submitted on whatever date and then published by whatever date. If you see what is their time, if they take 1 year to publish, then maybe that is not a good journal to target lah. You will have to wait 1 year before you see your article published.
Okay.
So you need to check that.
So you mentioned that means below 6 months is okay, right?
Yeah, below 6 months is okay. Maybe 1-2 months, 2 months like that, you should be able to hear from them, the reviews lah.
Okay. Maksudnya selepas maksimum 6 bulan tu kita dah dapat jawapan daripada reviewer, betul Prof?
Yeah. But usually before you submit to them, you need to look at their track record based on the published papers. So usually on the paper itself, they have written there.
Oh, yeah. Faham Prof. That's
So
politics.
not politics, but you just want to see, if they're going to take 1 year, you don't want to send to them, right?
Betul. Sebab saya dah 2 kali. Ni kali ketiga. Bukan baru assign editor, tak masuk lagi reviewer.
Tu yang maybe publish once a year kot, so dia relax.
Thanks Prof, saya terlepas pandang yang check pada artikel yang dah publish. Okay,
Yes.
terima kasih.
Okay, I answer one question on the chat box.
There's a chat box.
The expensive article processing fee somehow demotivate lecturer, especially young researcher with limited amount grant to publish open access journal. Is there any tip or tricks you can advise? So I don't know whether everybody knows this or not, but IUM at the research center, those who do not have grants can apply for publication fees up to 5,000 ringgit per year. So, but don't target open access journal that charge. There are those who charge 10K, right? Don't target those. Target those that are not so expensive, maybe 1K or 2K, something like this. So then you can request for article processing fees. That one is under the grant management unit in RMC, Research Management Center. You can apply. All the researchers who are working in IIUM can apply for this. Another trick is to collaborate. Unfortunately, all my answers are related to collaborate because I usually collaborate with other professors, and usually sometimes they get free publication, like waiver, the university pay for them. So I also have this, like, yeah. So other than that, you can use your grant, of course. Do we need to make the payment and then claim?
There's another
yes.
two.
But there is, do we need to make the payment and then claim from RMC? Yes, you need to. But the paper has to be Web of Science or Scopus, I think. That is the requirement. It cannot be just any journal. Okay, is contacting the editor to follow up the manuscript a good practice? Okay, normally you don't want to bother the editor, but if for, like, I think Dr. Alwi just now, he had many times that the paper is rejected and you want to learn, right? So you can ask nicely to the editor, can you clarify that you want to learn how to make the article accepted? In order to claim, yes, it should be Web of Science or Scopus at least. In order for the claim reimbursement for the article fee, it isn't necessary that the journal should be in Scopus. Yes, either Scopus or Web of Science. You can check at the website. I think they have the form there, RMC website, if I'm not mistaken.
Assalamualaikum Prof.
Waalaikumsalam. That's Suhana.
When we send for paper in a particular journals, there are guidelines for authors, right?
Yes.
So katalah we send our journals and then bila accepted, and then there is any additional guidelines which is not stated dalam website tu. Kiranya macam our conversation dalam email with the editor mention additional guidelines. So what is your
What kind of guidelines? This first time I'm hearing about this. Yeah.
Contohnya dalam guidelines tu mention kena sign for review, sign for checking for the language.
Oh yes.
Apa namanya?
Yes, some of them unfortunately, yeah, they don't trust, like maybe Asian, I don't know, sometimes they require for you to have the proofread by a native. Yeah,
So,
proofread by a native speaker. But there are services that are not so costly on this to proofread.
what I meant to say is that, for example, in the guidelines, it was not stated authors must send proofreading to this listed company, for example. It was not listed, but later on during the conversation with the editor, they require proofreading to be done in this specific listed proofreader, for example. So what is your comment?
Yeah, that means the journal is a bit, yeah, maybe they are trying to also make some money on that. I don't know. Is it a good journal or what?
It's I cannot say the journal's name, right? But it was it was indexed in Scopus.
Oh, okay. So maybe you can try to avoid this kind of journals. Maybe.
I actually did send for proofreading, but I use a local company and they do not accept that.
Yeah, that's the problem. Sometimes if they have, usually if it is a good journal, they will accept the proofread. They don't really, as long as it's proofread, as long as you show proof that it has been proofread. They don't usually specify a specific company.
I also have that kind of thinking because I think the proofreader, they did a very good job in terms of proofreading the articles. I mean, not only proofreading, they can detect some kind of scientific terms that I somehow misspell. So I think it was a very good job. So if I just would like to know if you are in my situation, what would be your, what would be your action? I mean, perhaps to retract the journal or how?
Yeah, so now they don't want to accept.
Actually, I keep on emailing them asking, but up until now, I mean, I sent several emails already and I received no feedback.
So maybe, yeah, but you wasted some time now, right? Because you waited for it to be proofread and all that. I think if there are no response after some time, you can give them maybe 1 month or so, then maybe you will have to, unfortunately, retract and resend to somewhere else.
Yeah, if I can help on that, Prof.
Yeah.
Dr. Suhana, from which field are you?
From medical science.
From medical,
medical science.
Okay, because I know from some social science, CVA, especially CVA, they actually have a list of proofreaders that they already sort of recommend. So if we go to other proofreaders, sometimes we kind of have to justify why we don't go with the one that they actually recommended. I experienced that last time. So I'm not sure whether the one that you have actually used, the service that you have used, they don't really recognize the service. Maybe they haven't seen the quality. But if you can justify, I think exactly like Prof. Anis mentioned just now, I think it should be okay. But although some publishers are very strict, so and it depends on domain. I'm not sure whether it also applies in medical domain, but in social science, I have experienced that the editor clearly mentioned, I want to go with this proofreader. Otherwise, my paper will not be considered. So I think, yeah, if you can communicate with the editor.
Prof Miram, if I can clarify, meaning that in that author's guideline for that particular journal that you sent to, they listed clearly the list of proofreader that require to be sent to. Okay. So because in my case,
Yeah.
it was not listed. That's why I kind of query
I
with
see.
them.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you, Prof, for the feedback.
Yeah.
Prof. Adis, I have a question.
Yes, Dr. Hafiz.
First of all, thank you very much for the sharing. Anyway, regarding the RMC punya tu, kan, as far as I concerned, those who can utilize the publication facilitation fee is only for those who don't have any grants. Unfortunately, we have some of our academician. I believe that 99% of the lecturers that we have here, those who are even for the new researcher, they will definitely have grant. Okay. Now they have several papers. For example, those who return from PhD, they have several papers they want to submit. But they also need to use that 20,000. For example, the latest grant is the one with UMP. You can imagine how can you submit a paper with someone with UMP and then this person in UMP does not even involved in your PhD punya research. So to utilize the grant, I believe it is quite impossible for that kind of publication. So thinking that many of us will have the grant, so can you please advise, since many of us cannot utilize the facilitation fee, how can we, especially the new researcher, can do publication? Concerning that some of us not have a very good networking as well. Maybe Prof, you can advise on that matter. That is number one. I have another question, Prof. If when it comes to the networking, sometimes the data comes, most of the data comes from our lab. And if we want to ask our colleagues from other university, for example, UKM that has lots of grants over there, or even they can pay for Q1 and Q2. And most of the time, this university, they will ask their researcher to be the corresponding or the first author. In fact, we are the one who's doing all the experiment. About 90% of the experiment comes from our lab. It is from our grant. So how do we make ourselves like, tak apalah, ambil lah, jadilah corresponding, even though it comes from my grant, and then it's okay. So sometimes it's quite difficult, Prof. Can you please advise? I have that kind of difficulties. Thank you, Prof.
Okay. So the first question about the publication fee, I think if I'm not mistaken, you do not, it's not necessary that you don't, you can have a grant as long as it is not related to the publication that you want to publish. So for example, your publication is about cell, I don't know, something, and your grant is on something else. So it is not related. Then you can apply for that publication facilitation fee. This is what I know, but you can double check with Dr. Adlina because she's the one in charge of this. But as far as I know,
I was
if you
rejecting that last time.
Huh?
I was rejecting the application before when I was in RMC.
Oh, you rejected that one because they didn't. But I thought I think we have still a lot of funds. I think if there is still, it's first come first serve. If you still have funds, they will allow this because we want to encourage publication. As you know, our publication is like dwindling over the years. The recent data for Myra, like reducing the number of publication. So yes, I think that one. Okay, so about the second, we can try that, and I will talk to Dr. Adina as well to ask. Okay, the second one is about how do you share. So there are some journals that allow co-corresponding authors, meaning there are two corresponding authors. That means you can be a corresponding author, he can be a corresponding author. You just have to fight on who, but it doesn't, if it's from a different university, it doesn't matter, right? If your student, number one, you number two, and he's number three, or he number two, you number three, they still count the first IIUM staff, right? So it shouldn't be any conflict there. So I have published together with my collaborator, with both of us are corresponding authors. So that is one way.
Okay,
to do
Prof.
that.
Thank you, Prof.
Another thing is if you collaborate with the professors from overseas, usually they want the last author. And for IIUM, they count the first IIUM. So we don't have any conflict. You can take the last, I will take the first, something like this lah. Not the first after the student. To negotiation techniques on how to publish. Okay, so any other question? I didn't see the chat. Can PRGS grant holder apply for publication fee reimbursement? Yes, PRGS doesn't support publishing. Unfortunately, Prof. Hadi, if you want, you have to use other grants, Prof. Hadi, your other grants for publication fee. But PRGS, they are strict on publication fees. Prof. Hadi saying something I didn't hear.
I think a problem with my mic. Thanks, Prof. Anis.
No problem. But I think I agree with the, like, when you are an early career researcher, it is quite hard to have a high index manuscript or high quality manuscript at the first try. So I think what you need to do is, like, don't give up, try and try again. You cannot expect it to achieve it in like maybe 1 year. I think for me, at least 4 or 5 years after I came back from PhD, like before you can start to establish everything. So it is not like a instant job. Okay, any more queries? I hope all that I have shared today is beneficial for everyone.
I think that's the questions, Prof, in the chat. Is there allocation for proofreading?
Proofreading, no. Proofreading fees, no, but you can put it in your grant. I think proofreading, if you apply for FRGS, normally they do put proofreading under honorarium or publication fees. I don't know, maybe we can also propose that proofreading fees, like maybe to RMC. Is there a lot of interest in having proofreading fees?
Assalamualaikum, Prof. If I may ask, perhaps this one not really related with publication, but since you have so many experience in publishing, perhaps your opinions will akan kasih very meaningful lah to these questions. Katalah if you do research something to do with Islamic perspective, contohnya, for example, the benefit of fasting, contohnya, and then you measure some kind of biochemical markers, but in the end, katalah dia punya results to show fasting is actually bad. So are you going to publish that?
This is difficult to answer. Are you measuring the right biochemical marker?
I have planned for that kind of research. I have planned.
But maybe the benefits of fasting is not expressed in those particular biochemical markers. There are other biochemical markers that can support your research.
Maybe, tapi katalah, I mean, this is just an example. Katalah for that particular research, it shows that fasting is actually good for that particular biochemical marker. So how are you going to publish that? I mean, for example, it's for grant and its requirement for publication. So are you going to publish that results?
For me, I don't know, because then you will sort of discourage people from fasting, right?
Yeah.
So So for me, I think I would search more on which type of biochemical marker would support your hypothesis. maybe you haven't found the right biochemical marker yet.
Oh, but then for that particular research already measure that particular biochemical markers that we expect to be a beneficial, right? And the grant is finished, katalah kan, and then you have to report.
But why maybe there is other findings that you can find from that particular biochemical marker, and you can publish on that, not necessarily related to fasting lah.
I mean, for from yours, I mean, based on your opinion, it's better not to publish, I mean, that particular results. I mean, to publish other results, something like that, perhaps do some review maybe, macam tu
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
Because I don't know, I think I would be worried whether, my work is like discouraging people from fasting, then
So let me just be honest with you, because I have planned for proposal, something to do from Islamic perspective and measuring biochemical markers, and I kind of concerned that instead of it give positive ataupun good supporting for Islamic perspective, it's going to be the results going to affect differently, something like that.
Yeah, so then maybe you haven't searched the right biochemical marker, because there have been studies that show that the fasting is beneficial, right, for the body, but perhaps what you are testing is not the right test to do.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, let's see if there's any other comment. What kind of document is required for proofreading claim? Some of the proofreader only provide certification later. RMC not yet provide claim for proofreading, only for publication fee, not yet proofreading. So yes, having financial education for proofreading would be very helpful, especially those who are working on book chapter. If I may suggest, RMC can arrange some kind of collaboration with Southpad for proofreading services instead of using services from outside. Yes, I agree on this, Dr. Hussam. I think I will discuss with my boss, Prof. Amir, and see whether we can arrange something like this. For example, proofreading services from Southpad. Yeah, then we can maybe arrange something on that.
So, I just want to share. When I was in USM, we work very close. I mean, our PPSP, the Science Perubatan, works very close with I think Department of Language or something. These are actually teachers, and they do the proofreading with very cheap price.
Okay.
We can help. We can get help from our K8.
Yeah. From Southpad, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ali.
Sorry, Prof. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, I was the one that sent the message. Sent these question regarding the proofreading claim. Actually, the question is regarding the grant, for example. So if we have the grant, and we have to submit the document for the proofreading.
Yes.
For the claim. So what kind of document? Because some proofreaders only provide certification letter, not receipt.
If you want for finance to claim the payment, unfortunately, you have to have receipt. This is not under RMC. This is a financial process. The same like if you purchase something, if you purchase item and equipment, you need a receipt to claim the amount of money. Of course, you can have the certificate to support, but the receipt from the proofreader is important in order to reimburse whatever you have paid.
Thank you, Prof.
You can ask them to provide a simple receipt and then sign. Okay.
Any more questions from the audience?
Yeah. So hope no questions from the slides. Huh? I mean, a lot of questions are related to research, etc. So hopefully the slides have been clear on this. I will share the slides, I think, to Dr. Izawati later, the slides, so that you can share if those people, anyone is interested.
Prof. Anis direct cable to RMC, that's why.
That's the question. I don't know whether there is any question on the what I presented. Is like there's no question on what I presented.
But if I can ask you, Prof, I mean, like now it's related to your slides. Just now you give some hints on how to detect what do you call that? I think the term about
predatory
predatory. I'm trying to find out what's a predatory journals. I think I came across one of my colleagues' experience that the site looks really nice. I mean, like looks legit, and then the information looks legit, but somehow it's kind of like a phishing sites. It's not really the original sites. So when we receive the email, it actually directs to that sites, but actually the original sites that belongs to the journal or is on the other address. So it's like kind of like a phishing for the internet banking, all those kind of finance. So some actually doing it for publications. So I think we have to also be vigilant in terms of the address of the site, just to make sure that we are not directed to different websites, and then eventually they get access to all to the papers that we have, and then they publish it on different on the original journals without our names on it. So I think if we can be more vigilant on that as well. But what is your comment on that, Prof?
This is the first time. I mean, I don't know. Usually I just check the name of the journal from the list, or whether it's blacklisted or not. I haven't and usually if they are phishing from the emails, I really don't entertain. If they email me to publish, I just ignore those emails. But now this first time I'm hearing this, scary, right? If they can get all your details about your internet bank or etc. from. But I think if you look at the link, then you can sort of know, right, whether it's the same as the original.
Yeah. That's why I think we have to be careful with looking at the address of the actual journal site, and then the address of the place that they want us to submit the papers and make the payment. Seems some people are very creative.
Fraud everywhere. Thank you, Pramira, for the insight.
Thank you.
Second, Prof, I just wonder, this is out of nowhere. Because IUM now, we don't subscribe to all this ranking, right? Like US ranking. That's why I heard. So what's the use of this citation for the benefit of our university?
The benefit of the university. So citation is whether the people are actually referring to your work. I think for you yourself, you would want to know whether your work is actually read by anyone and actually benefited anyone. In terms of the university, IUM is a public, even though we are a private public university, our funds come from the Ministry of Higher Education. That means our payroll, all the funding for IUM comes from the Ministry of Higher Education. Ministry of Higher Education requires us, they audit us, the researchers, using an assessment tool called MIRA. So Malaysia Research Assessment. So in this one, they collect our citations. We have, Alhamdulillah, because we have this lecturer in Kuantan who is very highly cited, so we do not have problems in the citation part, but we have problems in the number of publications. So the ministry requires each of us to publish at least 2 per year, each researcher. So if, for example, you publish 2, but another person is publishing 0, then the average of the university comes down lah. So that's the thing why we are pushing for publications. The ministry wants, because they have the taxpayer has invested a lot of money on us, so they want us to produce our findings to the public.
Okay, thanks, Prof.
Yeah, unfortunately, we still have to disclose our work, right? If not, they will not know what we are doing in the lab, right? Whether we are just having fun, not you know, like not doing anything.
Any more questions?
More question in the chat box. Intact open. Okay. Thank you for the session. Just to share, I have an author that argued with my review of his or her article, and yes, I found it extremely annoying and discreet. So don't argue with the reviewer. High potential of rejection. Okay. Okay, that's just a comment. What is your opinion about Intact Open publication? I think Intact Open is okay. So far as I know, they follow the review process properly. Usually it is for books, book chapters, if I'm not mistaken. I've never yet seen the journal, but as far as I know, I think the book chapter, I think I published with them, but maybe many years ago lah, but recently I don't know. I think should be okay, Dr. Swaila, if you can double check their website and everything.
By the way, Prof, have you heard about journal named Curious?
How do you spell that?
Cureus. Cureus, yes, Curious. I think the way they, the way they are doing their review, the peer reviews are quite creative, and it's totally different than the conventional ways of peer reviewing articles. And in fact, it's an open access free. It's a Scopus index. I think Q3 journal. However, it's happened that if your article is good and they think it's worth for publication, but you've got the language is not very good, so you have to use their proofreader. They are like proofreader, and it's quite expensive. So I think that's how they make money. But the way they peer review is quite different, and it's in a creative way that the publication can be accepted within 2-3 weeks.
What is creative way? What maybe you can elaborate on that?
It's totally different. Usually you got a double blinded, right? But this is when you submit to them, it's like a two-way communication. You are communicating with the reviewers, and they comment and then you respond to them. It's quite interesting, rather than we don't know we don't have direct communication to reviewers usually, right? But in Curious is slightly different.
So you know who your reviewer are, and you can have like email back and forth email with them.
Sort of. I always thought that Curious is, because I'm very curious with Curious, because I think it's better journal. But it's in Scopus and it's Q3. But you can get your article published within 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, because they do like live communication, right? Maybe they correct it faster. Interesting. I've never come across to this one yet. I think I have to study this to see whether.
Okay.
Curious.
Yeah, try have a look. It's very interesting journal. Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Dr. Alwi.
Any more questions? Let me check. Okay. In that case, thank you very much to those who have participated in this Q&A. I believe we are now have come to the end of our webinar. However, any questions after this, you may forward to the Secretariat or direct email to Prof. Anis. I think Prof. Anis is okay with that. And first of all, I would like to apologize for the bit internet glitch during early of this webinar. And thank you very much to Prof. Mira for being my lifesaver. So before we end our workshops, first and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to Prof. Anis for her valuable input on today's webinar. It is very valuable and very informative sharings. And my deepest gratitude goes to all who attended the webinar, and thank you very much for spending your time with us today. So thank you again to all, and we will end our session today with Surah Al-As and Tasbih Kafarah. Okay, Assalamualaikum everybody.